The second season of Jujutsu Kaisen recently wrapped, and I enjoyed it. I like the hidden inventory arc and how it fleshed out the characters of Gojo and Geto, while also being beautifully directed with the perfect blend of action and comedy, finishing with an extremely well executed.
Want a break from the ads?
Bro, I thought you had 15 seconds!
Accompanied by an insane tone shift, which leads into the bulk of the season, the Shibuya incident, which I also enjoyed. For the most part. I loved how this arc expanded Yuji as a character, as well as allowing for some of the most insane action spectacle I've seen out of a TV anime since Mob Psycho 100.
Jujutsu Kaisen Season 2's production has flatlined. It is Owarida.
I think it's really cool that this level of animation is given to this property.
What's up, guys? How do you like the new office?
Adapting the manga in a way unique to these Shonen Jump titles.
I'm all done. Do you want to check this out?
Yeah, let's see it. Wait. You're joking, right? I give you off one time, and this is what you make?
I just want to see my family.
Shut the fuck up!
Okay, anyone that hasn't been involved in the discourse around JJK Season 2 needs to know about the insane crunch put on all levels of production. It affects everyone at the studio, from the director, to the storyboarders, to the key animators, to the in-betweeners, and everyone in between. It led to certain episodes being shipped incomplete, and many people to leave the studio and speak out against the malpractice that happened at the studio, an extreme rarity in the country of Japan where death by overwork is simply tolerated as a societal woe. And you see, that's what makes JJK Season 2 such an accomplishment, that the people within the studio were able to ship something with this level of quality despite the looming timer placed on every episode. It's important to recognize the work put into making even a single episode of anime, especially ones made under extremely tight and mismanaged schedules, to understand that the credit in the quality given to this adaptation is a result of these people's talent and hard work, rather than the circumstances that befell them. Fuck Manabu Otsuka! With that in mind, hundreds of people worked on this season, and many whose role is murky at best from a Westerner's perspective. God knows how many animation directors there are on this season, because it's clear they didn't do their jobs. So it's simply impossible for me to highlight everyone's role in the production and evaluate its worth or lack thereof. And it pains me that some voices may go unrecognized, but there, I can still use my voice to tell some of their stories. So I decided to be selective. My favorite episode of the season was episode 13, Yuji vs. Choso. The dire fight on both ends and the plot relevance these characters have with each other that is only understood once the season is finished makes this a great rewatch. What really sold it was the directing. This episode looks nothing like what came before it and what came after it. From the lighting, to the environment, to the choreography, everything contributed to the tense life or death stakes that are given to this encounter. The people who are responsible for said episode are a rare occurrence in the world of episode direction. One, Kazuto Arai, and another, Takumi Tsunokohara, a joint directed episode. This is a rarity in the sense that it typically results in mismanaged parts of an episode, as one half would have a strikingly different feel from the other. Similarly, most productions don't need to resort to joint directing since it's indicative of a mismanaged schedule for two people to take up the role that was normally filled by one. However, the resulting product is one that combines the strength of both in a seamless way, as both halves of the episode combine to amplify the strengths of both halves of the fight. The first half of the episode takes place in the empty, dimly lit subway, which is handled by Arai. The second half takes place in the neon-lit, soaked bathroom, which was handled by Tsunokohara. Each phase of the fight has its directorial quirks that correspond to their styles, which also amplify the tension in the fight. For the first half, a lot of the relevant cuts are credited to Arai since he is the episode director who made the executive decisions on most of the storyboards. That is why there's such a premier use of signs and neon lights that symbolize the waves within the fight. The use of 3D also allows for these really cool camera moves in certain cuts. As for other confirmed cuts, this cut was done by Hayato Kurosaki, showing some of the beautiful blood manipulation in time with the studded lighting. Also, the sign got cut in half. I wonder what that's alluding to. Satoshi Sakai is somewhere in this cut, but people can't quite find him until he posted his production materials on Twitter. Tetsuya Takeuchi did this Kekai Sensen-esque cut with some great movement to it. Ken Takahashi did this incredible POV cut, which also leads into this other cut. Yeah, I don't know what to say at this point. The next half of the episode is courtesy of Takumi Sanokahara's storyboards within the cramped space of a bathroom. The neon lighting has seemed to have matched this change, going from a cyberpunk green and purple to a Smash Bros red versus blue. Gotta love that they added the touch of water droplets as well. The first cut comes from YouTuber Juny, who was courteous enough to upload the production materials for his work on this episode, link in the description. It's extremely smooth, similar to the other works he does for fun? Hi! Oh, fuck.
Little baby man, little baby. Hey, y'all, come look at this.
Yeah, I don't know what this is. The next cut comes from the legend Kosuke Kato. This is where you really see the Imaishi-isms comparable to Edgerunners. His work on this season is some of the best. The smears, the timing, the hand-to-hand combat, it's all just mwah, chef's kiss. Most of this cut was Sanokahara's layout. With Van Oba right at the end. There's also this cut that I just love, where the shot of Choso's blood bullet is framed into the hole in Yuji's chest, which was clearly a choice of framing by Sanokahara. Our next clip is this one that alternates between Van Oba and Hoodie Boy. God, what are these people's usernames? This one feels a lot more down to earth and physical than the other cuts. Okay, this one is my favorite, so I'm just gonna let it speak for itself. A lot of Chinese webgen animators are starting to enter the anime industry, and their talent is plain to see. Gonna keep a close eye on Nothing Yukun going forward. Can't wait to see what he makes next. Gotta love the camera rotation from Ha Jun-sao as well. The last cut with confirmed credits is the finale to the fight. Juny did the lead up to the punch, while the rest was handled by Dr. Bean, who animated Yuji having the most neutral expression when his shoulder got chopped off. This leads into a really cool Obari punch. And yeah, that's about it. There are some other scenes of note, like Yuji's corpse having a slash right through him, which I alluded to earlier, as well as this whack-ass scene, which was a callback to the cut in the first episode, which was also a flashback, foreshadowing later developments in the season. And overall, fantastic episode of anime. But I haven't really gone into the production that thoroughly. Here's the thing. There was actually a fusetter from Arai that details the production of this episode, and I could simply read it all out to you in this video, but it's in Japanese, and there are going to be mistranslations whether you use Google Translate, or DeepL, or ChatGPT. So I will try my best to illustrate its confirmed contents via Yu Kao's writings on said episode of Jujutsu Kaisen on Sakuga blog, and cross-reference that with Arai's translated blog post. The first thing we know is the episode was directorially inspired by Cyberpunk Edgerunners and Kizumonogatari. From the beginning, I was prepared to be called a ripoff of Cyberpunk and Kizumonogatari. This is something I could have confirmed without even reading any of the articles, so I'll illustrate it for you. Look, an elevator. Look, neon outlines. Look, blood. A lot of blood. In all seriousness, those two works fit the scenery of that episode, in addition to complementing the aesthetics of the fight itself. After all, Kai Igarashi's 6th episode of Edgerunners was the genesis of this inspiration. Watching the Igarashi episode, we wanted to do something like that too, right? Not only is it really well depicted in the episode of the series, but it correlates within the context of the JJK episode. An extremely close quarter, neon-soaked bloodbath. And you can even see those Imaishi-isms in some of the cuts of the episode. It was actually pre-planned that Igarashi was supposed to work on the episode but the schedule, what the fuck? Schedule? Fuck! But the schedule didn't align. And that's why I wanted Mr. Ikarashi to participate. But in the end, the schedule didn't work out and he only got involved until the pre-production stage. As for the pre-production stage, a lot was going into the groundwork that became of the episode. Arai's first half was built upon extensive 3D previs and live-action footage he recorded with his friends. I took the last train to Shibuya, hung out at karaoke for 5 hours, and when the station opened on the first train, I dashed off to scout locations, took videos and photos, and stocked up on live-action material to incorporate into previs. Since 3D was planned in the creation of the episode, the physical space of the train station had to be seen firsthand to properly recreate the movements in the scene, which is why Arai went out to Shibuya to take footage for reference, unlike most other staff. It is also somewhat of a time-saving technique, as camera mapping has to be pre-planned to fit within animation on a standard episode, unlike in 3D where it can be moved at will and used to fit the key animation or storyboards if communication between departments is strained. This can even be noticed in the beginning of the episode, as the opening sequence outside the train station in the episode was animated by Arai himself. You can see this influence the footage had on his ability to render the scenery of Shibuya, with the violence within those few scenes incorporating the physical environment, as well as specific attention paid to signs and other architecture. However, this is where the complications in production began to emerge, as the creation of the 3D model took up way more time and money than initially expected, and secretly, Sanagahara didn't agree with the concept in the first place. Since the 3D route didn't pan out as expected, he created a 2D storyboard anyway, which most heavily impacted the rim lighting, confusing the animators who didn't know exactly where the light was coming from, which was implied in the 3D model. This is where we get into Sanagahara's involvement in the episode, which warrants discussion on how they first met. Arai and Sanagahara first worked together on the second Fate Grand Order Camelot movie. This film is beautifully animated, but specific to the production philosophy Arai had for the film, which is described by Jujutsu as a more Disney-like approach, which is to say, character-coded animation assignments, with the wrinkle that the people entrusted with one specific character were his close friends, and that rather than simply drawing them, they would effectively have chief director status for the relevant chunks of the movie. The relevant cuts done for the movie vary wildly in style, with the intent of allowing the key animators to make exactly what they want to make for their parts of the film. But JJK had different ambitions. As opposed to the second Fate Grand Order Camelot movie, the key animators followed Arai and Sanagahara's vision more faithfully. However, in order to avoid ruining the action design in the small space of a toilet, it was necessary for the storyboard director to completely control everything without allowing any ad-libbing in the animation. Otherwise, it would have been impossible to complete the project. Since the outlining process for the episode had run into so many delays, on top of the looming deadline from Mappa's poorly managed schedule, and the environment of the episode being so firmly cemented with Arai's storyboards, Sanagahara had to carry the second half. And carry he does. Sanagahara's second half was relying on his extremely detailed storyboards meant to be layouts. That's why Sanagahara spent a whole year drawing super accurate storyboards and was exhausted. When the production was nearing the deadline, most of the heavy lifting had been done, so Sanagahara's storyboards needed to be followed to the line for the episode to be shipped on time. And, you know, I wouldn't want ad-libbing on a storyboard I spent a year on. If translated correctly, that means that this episode has been in the works since September of 2022. But that isn't all the work he did for that episode. The inspiration of Kizumonogatari can also be seen with Sanagahara drawing multi-purpose layers of droplets, similarly to what is seen in the movie. The method was to have Sanagahara draw about 15 patterns of water splash drawing materials, and then flip them left and right to create a total of 30 patterns of drawing materials. Extract the outline of the character cell, cut a mask, and randomly generate particles on its surface. Then, generated particles randomly display one of 30 patterns of drawing materials. By making the particles' appearance cycle correspond to the repeat timing of the drawing materials and roughly specify the left and right directions by hand, a more or less natural splash of water is expressed. It's not just a still picture, it keeps on displaying particles that follow the moving character cells, and it is possible to adjust the size of the droplets according to the movement of the z-axis. And it also supports slow expressions, which is truly amazing. Yeah, that is amazing. Now, the reverse engineering of the rain droplets doesn't look as seamless as it did in the Kizu films, which were drawn individually on a movie budget, but it still adds to the atmosphere of the fight regardless. And that's about it. There were some other roles I failed to mention, and there were a lot more people on this production that most people probably don't even know exist. Although, one interesting detail I've come across are animators that don't want to be credited, possibly for privacy reasons, and it's important to respect their privacy. I mean, in reality, a lot of the people who are invested in this Sakuga community have favorite animators, the people that contribute to this medium in a visual way that they prefer over others. And conversely, there are people that don't want to be celebrities. They just want to do their jobs and go home. But what I was hoping with this video was to take away credit from the corporate structure and give it to the people who actually work their asses off to make this. And I also saw the folly of people within said structure, even outside of the deadlines. I'm pretty sure Arai wouldn't have done the 3D modeling if he were to redo the episode. But even after that, there's still work to be done. The Mappa pipeline doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon.
Do we still get a 3-hour paid vacation? Of course not!
And we're all gonna tune in, because the work being done here isn't something that can just be ignored. So let's marvel at these people's hard work, but also be aware of the people who deserve the credit for it, and the people who don't. Yeah, that's about it.